Just one ship? Wait, why is a single human craft sufficient? The Great Hall of the Galactic Council had never been so silent, and every ambassador from every known species sat frozen in their seats as the transmission played across the massive holographic display above them. High Commander Vorthan of the Dravari Empire stood tall and proud on the screen, his scaled skin gleaming under the harsh lights of his warship's bridge, and his 4 eyes burned with the confidence of a conqueror who had never tasted defeat. "The Galactic Council will take notice," Vorthan declared, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. "The Dravari Empire has claimed the Sol system and all territories belonging to the species known as humanity, and any interference will be considered an act of war against our glorious empire." Ambassador Kiravel of the Velrani Collective rose from her seat, her tall, slender form trembling with barely contained emotion as she addressed the council. "Unprecedented," she announced, her melodic voice carrying across the hall. "The humans joined our community merely 70 solar cycles ago, and now the Dravari seek to exterminate them before they have even had a chance to prove themselves." A rumble of agreement passed through the assembled delegates, but no one moved to take action, and no one volunteered their fleets to defend the young species on the edge of civilized space. The Dravari had conquered 43 star systems over the past millennium, and their military might was legendary throughout the galaxy. So who would risk their own civilization to protect a species that most considered primitive and insignificant? Observer Yelmora of the Neutral Archives adjusted her recording devices and captured every moment of the proceedings, for this would be an important historical document regardless of the outcome. She had witnessed the fall of 17 civilizations during her long career. Suspected, she was about to witness another. On Earth, Admiral George Patterson received the news in his office at Fleet Command Headquarters, and his weathered face showed no surprise as he read the intelligence reports detailing the approaching Dravari Armada. 800 warships were heading toward the Sol system, each one crewed by thousands of warriors from a species that had evolved for combat, and their weapons could reduce entire planets to molten rock within hours. "How long until they arrive?" Patterson asked his aide, a young officer named Lieutenant Danny Cho. 17 days, sir," Danny replied, his voice steady despite the fear that must have been churning in his gut. "Our long-range sensors detected them crossing into Sector 7 this morning." Patterson nodded slowly and turned to look out the window at the blue sky above, and he thought about the billions of humans going about their daily lives, completely unaware of the doom approaching their world. "Contact Captain Nathan Cole aboard the Valiant," Patterson ordered. "Tell him his ship has been selected for the defense mission." Danny's eyes widened in confusion, and he hesitated before speaking. "Sir, just the Valiant?" he asked carefully. "Should I not contact the rest of the Third Fleet as well?" Patterson shook his head and allowed himself a small smile that held no warmth. "One ship will be sufficient, Lieutenant," he said quietly. "One ship is all we need." The transmission reached the USS Valiant 3 hours later, as the destroyer-class vessel patrolled the outer reaches of the asteroid belt, and Captain Nathan Cole read the orders twice before setting down his tablet. He was a man of average height, with short brown hair and calm gray eyes that had seen more combat than most officers twice his age, and he had served aboard human warships for 22 years without ever questioning an order. Order made him pause. "Commander Brooks," Cole called out to his first officer, a broad-shouldered man with a shaved head and a scar running down his left cheek. "Assemble the senior staff in the briefing room immediately." Kevin Brooks nodded and activated the ship-wide communication system, and within minutes, the Valiant's top officers had gathered around the central table in the briefing room. Lieutenant Maria Vasquez arrived first, her dark hair pulled back in a tight braid and her sharp brown eyes scanning the room for any sign of what this meeting might concern. And she took her position at the tactical station without a word. Dr. Lisa Morgan entered next, the ship's chief science officer adjusting her glasses as she settled into her chair. And her mind was already racing through possible scenarios that might require such an urgent assembly. Chief Engineer Tony Reeves was the last to arrive, his coverall stained with grease from the engine repairs he had been conducting, and he muttered an apology for his appearance as he found his seat. Captain Cole waited until everyone was settled before activating the holographic display at the center of the table, and the image of 800 Dravari warships filled the room with an ominous red glow. "Ladies and gentlemen," Cole began, his voice calm and measured, "the Dravari Empire has declared their intention to invade our solar system and exterminate humanity, and their fleet will arrive in 17 days. Silence filled the room as the officers absorbed this information, but no one panicked and no one showed fear, for they were humans, and humans had faced extinction before. Fleet Command has assigned the Valiant to intercept and engage the enemy fleet," Cole continued, watching the faces of his crew for any reaction. Kevin Brooks leaned forward, with a frown creasing his scarred face. "What other ships will be joining us, Captain?" Already knowing the answer from the look in Cole's eyes. "None," Cole replied simply. "We are the entire defense force." Maria Vasquez let out a sharp laugh that held no humor, and she shook her head in what might have been disbelief or might have been admiration. 212 crew members against 800 warships, she calculated aloud. "Those are interesting odds, sir." Dr. Morgan pushed her glasses up her nose and pulled up data on her personal tablet. "The Dravari have never lost a military engagement in recorded galactic history," she noted, her scientific mind already analyzing the challenge before them. "Their ships are heavily armored, and their weapons technology is considered among the most advanced in the known galaxy." Tony Reeves scratched his chin and studied the holographic display with the practiced eye of an engineer who had kept human ships running through impossible situations. "Inefficient," he observed, pointing to the technical readouts, "and their shield generators appear to be externally mounted, which seems like a design flaw to me." Captain Cole nodded and felt a surge of pride in his crew, for they were already looking for weaknesses instead of dwelling on the overwhelming odds against them. "The Galactic Council believes we are sending a single ship because we have accepted defeat," Cole explained. "The Dravari believe we are either arrogant or stupid, and both assumptions will work in our favor." He paused and looked each of his officers in the eye before continuing. "What they do not understand is that humanity does not send its best ship to fight impossible battles," Cole declared, his voice growing stronger with each word. "We send a single ship because a single ship is sufficient, and the USS Valiant will prove this to the entire galaxy." Maria Vasquez grinned and cracked her knuckles with anticipation. "Do we begin combat preparations, Captain?" she asked eagerly. Cole checked his tablet and made a quick calculation. "Immediately," he ordered. "We have 17 days to remind the universe why humanity survived when so many other species did not." The officers rose from their seats and headed to their stations, with purpose in their steps, and the USS Valiant began its preparations for a battle that would change the course of galactic history. None of them knew if they would survive the coming conflict, but all of them knew they would fight with everything they had, because that was what humans did when their backs were against the wall. They fought, and they won, and they made their enemies regret ever threatening their home. Just one ship? Wait. Why is a single human craft sufficient? The Dravari fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, like a swarm of metal locusts descending upon a field of grain, and the sight of 800 warships, arranged in perfect military formation, would have terrified any species in the known galaxy. High Commander Vorthan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Crushing Talon, and surveyed his mighty armada with satisfaction burning in all four of his eyes. "Scan the system," he ordered his tactical officer. I want to know exactly what defenses these humans have prepared for us. The tactical officer, a young Dravari named Krelvax, bent over his console and activated the long-range sensors, and what he found made him pause in confusion. Commander, Krelvax reported hesitantly, I am detecting only a single vessel moving to intercept us. Vorthan turned sharply and crossed the bridge in 3 powerful strides. Only one ship? He demanded, unable to believe what he was hearing. Check your sensors again, you fool. Krelvax ran the scan 3 more times and received the same result each time. I have confirmed the reading, Commander, he said nervously. There is only one human ship, and it appears to be a small destroyer-class vessel with minimal armament. A ripple of laughter spread across the bridge of the crushing Talon, and even Vorthon allowed himself a deep chuckle that rumbled through his massive chest. These humans are even more pathetic than the intelligence reports suggested, War Chief Drexel commented from his position at the weapons station. They send a single ship to face our armada, and I cannot decide if this is arrogance or simply stupidity. Observer Yelmora watched from her designated position in the corner of the bridge, her recording devices capturing every moment of what the Dravari clearly expected to be a quick and easy conquest. Been granted permission to document the invasion as a representative of the neutral archives, and she expected this recording would serve as a warning to other young species who might consider defying the Dravari Empire. The USS Valiant appeared on the main view screen as it approached the fleet, a small gray vessel that looked almost insignificant against the backdrop of stars and the massive Dravari warships. Captain Nathan Cole sat in his command chair and studied the enemy formation with calm gray eyes that betrayed no fear. Report, he ordered quietly. Lieutenant Maria Vasquez checked her tactical display and rattled off the numbers without hesitation. 800 enemy vessels confirmed, she reported. 600 are standard cruiser-class ships with heavy plasma cannons and kinetic barriers, and 150 are carrier-class vessels housing approximately 30 fighter craft each, and the remaining 50 appear to be battleship-class vessels with enhanced armor and weapons. Commander Kevin Brooks whistled low under his breath at the overwhelming odds. That is a lot of firepower, Captain, he observed. Even by Dravari standards, this is an excessive force for conquering a single system. Cole nodded and allowed himself a thin smile. They wanted to make an example of humanity, he explained. They wanted to show the galaxy what happens to young species who advance too quickly for the comfort of established powers. Dr. Lisa Morgan looked up from her science station with concern in her eyes. Captain, we are being hailed by the Dravari flagship, she announced. Put it on screen, Cole ordered. The image of High Commander Vorthon appeared before them, his scaled face twisted into an expression of contempt and amusement. Human vessel, Vorthon began, his voice dripping with condescension. I am High Commander Vorthon of the Dravari Empire, and I demand to speak with whoever is foolish enough to command this pitiful ship. Cole rose from his chair and clasped his hands behind his back in a relaxed posture. I am Captain Nathan Cole of the USS Valiant, he replied evenly, and I am here to offer you one chance to withdraw your fleet from this system peacefully. The bridge of the crushing Talon erupted in laughter once again, and Vorthan's 4 eyes widened with disbelief. You offer us a chance to withdraw? Vorthan repeated incredulously. You stand alone against 800 of our finest warships, and you dare to threaten us? Cole's expression did not change. I am not threatening you, Commander, he said calmly. I am offering you an opportunity to avoid unnecessary bloodshed, and I strongly recommend you take it. Vorthan's amusement faded into cold anger. War Chief Drexel, he commanded, send the first wave to destroy this insolent human, and make sure the rest of the galaxy sees what happens to those who defy the Dravari Empire. Drexel grinned and activated his communication system. "First Assault Wing, you are cleared to engage," he ordered. 50 ships should be more than enough to reduce that human vessel to atoms. The first wave of Dravari cruisers broke formation and accelerated toward the Valiant, their weapons charging with deadly energy as they closed the distance. On the bridge of the human ship, Lieutenant Vasquez's fingers danced across her tactical console. 50 enemy ships incoming, she reported, with a hint of excitement in her voice. They will be in weapons range in approximately 4 minutes. Captain Cole returned to his command chair and settled in with the calm demeanor of a man who had been in this situation many times before. "All hands to battle stations," he announced over the ship-wide intercom. "This is Captain Cole, and we are about to engage the enemy, so I expect everyone to perform their duties with the excellence I have come to expect from this crew." Chief Engineer Tony Reeves responded from the engine room. "Engines are running at 115% capacity, Captain," he reported proudly. "I have also modified the power distribution system to give weapons and shields priority over non-essential systems." Cole nodded with appreciation for his engineer's initiative. "Excellent work, Chief," he acknowledged. "Lieutenant Vasquez, are weapons ready?" Maria cracked her knuckles and grinned. "All railgun batteries are loaded and targeting systems are locked," she confirmed. "Missile tubes 1 through 12 are armed with tactical nuclear warheads, and point defense systems are online and tracking." The Dravari ships continued their approach, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. "Human vessel," one of the Dravari captains transmitted with contempt in his voice. "This is your final chance to surrender before we obliterate you." Cole did not bother to respond. "Helm, bring us about and engage full acceleration toward the enemy formation," he ordered instead. "Lieutenant Vasquez, fire at will." The Valiant's engines roared to life with a power that surprised even the Dravari sensors, and the small human ship shot forward like a bullet fired from a gun. The first railgun rounds struck the lead Dravari cruiser before its captain could even register that the humans were attacking, and the kinetic projectiles punched through the ship's shields like they were made of paper. Explosions rippled across the Dravari formation as the Valiant tore through their ranks at impossible speed, its weapons firing in every direction with devastating accuracy. Observer Yelmora watched with growing horror as one human ship systematically dismantled 50 Dravari cruisers in a display of combat prowess that defied everything she knew about galactic warfare. 7 minutes after the engagement began, the last Dravari cruiser in the first wave exploded in a brilliant flash of light. High Commander Vorthan stood frozen on his bridge, his 4 eyes wide with shock and disbelief. "Impossible," he whispered, his confidence crumbling like sand before a wave. The USS Valiant emerged from the wreckage of the first wave with minor damage to its forward shields, and Captain Cole's voice came through on an open channel. "That was your first warning, Commander," Cole said calmly. "I strongly suggest you heed the second." For the first time in his long military career, High Commander Vorthan felt something he had never experienced before. Just one ship? Wait? No. Why is a single human craft sufficient? The recording from Observer Yelmora reached the Galactic Council chambers within hours, and every ambassador sat in stunned silence as they watched a single human ship destroy 50 Dravari cruisers in 7 minutes. Ambassador Kiravel rose from her seat with trembling limbs, her usually calm voice shaking with disbelief. "This cannot be real," she declared. "The Dravari have the most advanced military technology in the galaxy, and their warriors are considered unbeatable in combat." The human ambassador, a middle-aged woman named Patricia Wells, stood and addressed the council with a knowing smile on her face. "Perhaps the council would like me to explain why Earth sent only one ship," she offered politely. Every eye in the chamber turned to her with desperate curiosity. "Please," Kiravel urged, "help us understand what we just witnessed." Patricia nodded and activated a holographic display that showed the planet Earth spinning slowly in the darkness of space. "My species evolved on what your scientists would classify as a Category 12 death world," she began. "For those unfamiliar with the classification system, this means that virtually everything on our planet is capable of killing us." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembled delegates. "Our gravity is nearly 3 times the galactic average," Patricia continued. "Our atmosphere contains a gas called oxygen that is highly corrosive and combustible. And our weather systems produce storms powerful enough to level cities." She changed the display to show images of Earth's wildlife, and several ambassadors gasped in horror. "Our planet is home to millions of predator species," Patricia explained. "From microscopic organisms that can kill within hours, to massive creatures that hunt in packs and can outrun most vehicles. And humans have had to fight for survival every single day of our existence." Ambassador Kiravel shook her head in amazement. "How did your species survive such conditions?" she asked. Patricia's smile grew wider. "We survived because we are the most stubborn and adaptable species to ever evolve," she answered proudly. "When the predators were faster, we invented weapons. And when the weather was harsh, we built shelters. And when diseases threatened to wipe us out, we developed medicine." She paused and let her words sink in before continuing. "But most importantly," Patricia added, "we survived because we learned to fight, and we became very good at it, because we spent thousands of years fighting each other in wars that would horrify any species in this chamber." The display changed to show scenes of human warfare throughout history, from ancient battles with swords and shields to modern conflicts with nuclear weapons and orbital strikes. "We did not build our ships for exploration," Patricia concluded. "We built them for survival. And every human vessel is designed to function in the worst possible conditions against the most dangerous enemies imaginable." Back at the Sol system, High Commander Vorthan struggled to process what had just happened to his first attack wave. War Chief Drexel stood beside him with his clawed hands clenched in barely contained fury. "We must send more ships," Drexel insisted. "That human vessel caught our cruisers by surprise, but a larger force will overwhelm their defenses." Vorthan nodded slowly and tried to push down the unfamiliar feeling of doubt that had taken root in his chest. "Send 200 ships," he ordered, "and tell them to maintain formation and coordinate their fire, because I will not tolerate another embarrassment." The second wave of Dravari ships moved toward the Valiant with more caution than the first, their weapons fully charged and their shields at maximum power. Captain Cole watched them approach on the main view screen and turned to his science officer. "Dr. Morgan, have you finished analyzing their shield technology?" he asked. Lisa Morgan pushed her glasses up her nose and nodded enthusiastically. "Yes, Captain," she reported. "Their shields are impressive against energy weapons, but they have a significant weakness against kinetic projectiles traveling at high velocity. And I believe our railguns can penetrate their defenses if we target the shield generators directly." Cole nodded with satisfaction. "Excellent work, Doctor," he praised. "Lieutenant Vasquez, adjust your targeting parameters accordingly." Maria grinned and made the necessary adjustments to her weapon systems. "Already done, sir," she confirmed. "I have also identified the optimal firing angles to maximize penetration through their armor." Commander Brooks checked the tactical display and frowned at what he, "Captain, they are spreading out into a wider formation," he observed. "They are trying to surround us and attack from multiple angles." Cole considered the situation for a moment before making his decision. "Then we will not give them the chance," he declared. "Helm, take us directly into the center of their formation at maximum speed." The helmsman, a young woman named Lieutenant Carol Price, looked surprised by the order. "Sir, that will put us in the middle of 200 enemy ships," she pointed out. Cole smiled calmly. Exactly, he replied. They cannot fire on us without risking hitting each other, and their numbers will become a liability instead of an advantage. The Valiant's engines flared with incredible power as the ship accelerated toward the center of the Dravari formation, and the enemy captains scrambled to adjust their positions. Chief Engineer Tony Reeves pushed the engines beyond their rated capacity, monitored the power levels with careful attention. Engines are holding steady at 130%, he reported, but I am detecting some strain on the primary coolant systems, so we will need to ease off within the hour. Understood, Chief, Cole acknowledged. Make it work. The Valiant plunged into the heart of the Dravari formation like a knife into flesh, and Lieutenant Vasquez unleashed everything the ship had. Railgun rounds tore through enemy shields and armor with devastating precision, while nuclear-tipped missiles detonated against clustered groups of ships that had gotten too close together. The Dravari captains tried to coordinate their fire, but the human ship moved too fast and too unpredictably for their targeting systems to track. Every time they thought they had a clear shot, the Valiant would change direction or roll to present a different angle, and their weapons fire would streak harmlessly through empty space or strike their own allies. Observer Yelmora continued to record everything from the bridge of the crushing Talon, her appendages trembling as she witnessed the destruction of the second wave. This is impossible, she whispered to herself. One ship should not be able to do this. High Commander Vorthon watched the battle unfold on his view screen with growing despair. 100 ships had been destroyed in the first 30 minutes, and the human vessel showed no signs of slowing down. How are they doing this? Vorthon demanded. Their ship is smaller and less armed than our cruisers, so how are they defeating us so easily? War Chief Drexel had no answer. After 57 minutes of brutal combat, the second wave was broken. 163 Dravari ships had been destroyed, and the survivors were retreating in disorder. The Valiant had lost its secondary shield array and 17 crew members, but it was still operational and still dangerous. Captain Cole ordered a moment of silence to honor the fallen, and every member of the crew bowed their heads in respect. When the moment passed, Cole returned to his command chair and opened a channel to the Dravari flagship. That was your second warning, Commander, Cole announced, his voice as calm as ever despite the chaos of battle. You now have a choice, and I suggest you choose wisely. Vorthon stared at the view screen with fear and hatred burning in all four of his eyes. He had lost over 200 ships to a single human vessel, and the galaxy was watching his humiliation. This could not continue. Something had to change. Just one ship? Wait. Why is a single human craft sufficient? High Commander Vorthon sat alone in his personal chambers aboard the crushing Talon, and for the first time in his long military career, he did not know what to do. 213 ships had been destroyed by a single human vessel, and the morale of his entire fleet was crumbling like dust in a solar wind. His communications console beeped with an incoming transmission, and he accepted the call without enthusiasm. Captain Nathan Cole's face appeared on the screen, those calm gray eyes showing no hint of the exhaustion that must have been building after hours of continuous combat. Commander Vorthon, Cole greeted him with surprising politeness. I thought it might be time for us to have a private conversation. Vorthon leaned forward with suspicion in all four of his eyes. Why would the commander of an enemy vessel wish to speak with me privately? He demanded. Slightly. Because I believe you are an intelligent being, Cole replied, and I think you deserve to understand exactly what you are facing before you make your next decision. Vorthon considered refusing the conversation, but his curiosity was stronger than his pride. Very well, human, he agreed reluctantly. Speak your piece. Cole nodded and clasped his hands behind his back. You have spent the last several hours wondering how a single ship could defeat so many of your vessels, Cole began. And I suspect you have been telling yourself that we must have some secret weapon or advanced technology that gives us an unfair advantage. Vorthon's scales shifted color slightly, betraying his surprise at how accurately the human had read his thoughts. The truth is much simpler and much more terrifying, Cole continued. The USS Valiant is not a special ship, and we do not possess any technology that is significantly more advanced than what you have. Vorthon frowned in confusion. Then how do you explain your victories, he asked. Cole smiled, and there was something almost sad in that expression. The Valiant is a standard destroyer-class vessel, Cole explained. One of approximately 3,000 identical ships in Earth's active fleet. And every human warship is built to the same specifications and crewed by personnel trained to the same standards. Vorthon felt his blood run cold as the implications of those words sank in. 3,000 ships, he repeated slowly. All capable of what yours has done today? Cole nodded. Every single one, he confirmed. And that is just our active fleet, because we have another 2,000 ships in reserve and the industrial capacity to build 500 more every year. Vorthon's mind raced as he calculated what this meant. If one human ship could destroy over 200 Dravari vessels, then 3,000 human ships could annihilate the entire Dravari Empire without breaking a sweat. Why are you telling me this? Vorthon asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Cole's expression grew serious. Because I do not want to kill anyone else today, Cole answered honestly. We have both lost good warriors in this battle, and I see no reason for more to die when the outcome is already certain. Vorthon sat back in his chair and felt the weight of his situation pressing down upon him. If I withdraw my fleet, I will be executed for cowardice, he admitted. The Dravari Council does not tolerate failure, and they will make an example of me. Cole nodded with understanding. I know, he said, and I am sorry for that, but the alternative is the destruction of your entire fleet, and possibly the beginning of a war that will end your civilization. The communication ended, and Vorthon sat alone with his thoughts for a long time. To the rank of High Commander, through a lifetime of victories, and he had never imagined that his career would end in disgrace. But what choice did he have? If he continued the attack and failed, his entire fleet would be destroyed, and the Dravari Empire would face a retaliatory strike from a species that apparently had the power to wipe them out completely. If he retreated, he would face execution, but his fleet would survive, and his people would have a chance to prepare for the threat that humanity represented. War Chief Drexel entered his chambers without knocking, and his face was twisted with fury. Commander, the warriors are demanding answers, Drexel reported angrily. They want to know why we are not pressing the attack against a single enemy ship. Vorthon looked at his old friend and saw the same bloodlust that had driven the Dravari to conquer 43 star systems. Because that single ship has shown us something we were too proud to see, Vorthon replied quietly. The humans are not a weak young species to be crushed beneath our boots. Drexel scoffed dismissively. They have won 2 battles through trickery and luck, he insisted. A full assault will overwhelm their defenses, and we will tear that ship apart. Vorthon shook his head. The human captain told me something that changes everything, Vorthon said. Their ship is not special, because it is one of 3,000 identical vessels in their fleet, and every one of them is crewed by warriors as capable as those we have faced today. Drexel's expression faltered as he absorbed this information. That cannot be true, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Vorthon rose from his chair and faced his war chief directly. I believe it is true, Vorthon declared, and I believe that if we continue this invasion, we will not only lose this fleet, but we will provoke a war that will end with the extinction of our species. Drexel's clawed hands clenched at his sides. "So, what do we do?" he demanded. "Retreat like cowards and face execution at home?" Vorthan considered the question carefully before answering. "No," he decided, his resolve hardening. "We will not retreat." Drexel looked surprised by this answer. "Then we attack?" he asked with hope returning to his eyes. Vorthan nodded slowly. "We attack with everything we have," he confirmed. "Every ship, every weapon, every warrior, and we will either destroy that human vessel or die with honor." A fierce grin spread across Drexel's face. "That is the commander I have followed into 100 battles," he declared proudly. "I will give the order immediately." As Drexel left to prepare the fleet, Vorthan walked to his viewport and looked out at the stars. He knew they would probably lose, but at least they would face their end as true Dravari warriors. On the bridge of the USS Valiant, Captain Cole received the report from his communications officer with a heavy sigh. "The entire Dravari fleet is moving to attack," Lieutenant Vasquez confirmed. 550 ships in a single massive wave. Commander Brooks looked at his captain with concern. "That is a lot of firepower heading our way, sir," he observed. "Even for us." Cole nodded and stood from his command chair. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the ship-wide intercom. "The Dravari have chosen to stake everything on one final assault, and we are going to meet them head-on, because that is what humans do." He paused and looked at his crew with pride burning in his eyes. "I know some of you are scared, and that is okay, because fear is natural," Cole continued. "But remember who you are and where you came from, and remember that humanity has never surrendered to impossible odds." Rose from every corner of the ship. "Battle stations," Cole ordered, "and may whatever gods you believe in watch over us all." The final battle was about to begin. H1. Just one ship? Wait. Why is a single human craft sufficient? The final assault of the Dravari fleet was a sight that would be remembered throughout galactic history, as 550 warships advanced toward a single human vessel in a formation that filled the void of space with metal and fury. Observer Yelmora gripped her recording devices with trembling appendages and whispered a prayer to the ancient gods of her people, for she was certain she was about to witness something that would change the galaxy forever. High Commander Vorthon stood on the bridge of the crushing Talon and watched the human ship grow larger on his view screen. And despite everything that had happened, he felt a strange sense of respect for the warriors he was about to face. "All ships, concentrate fire on the human vessel," he commanded. "We will overwhelm their defenses through sheer volume of weapons fire." The Dravari fleet opened up with everything they had, and thousands of plasma bolts and missiles streaked toward the USS Valiant in a storm of destruction that should have vaporized any ship in the known galaxy. But the Valiant was not just any ship. Captain Nathan Cole sat in his command chair and watched the incoming fire with calm gray eyes. "Helm, execute evasive pattern Omega," he ordered. "Lieutenant Vasquez, return fire at will." Lieutenant Carol Price threw the ship into a series of maneuvers that defied physics and common sense, spinning and rolling and diving through the incoming fire with a precision that left the Dravari gunners struggling to track their target. Maria Vasquez unleashed the full fury of the Valiant's weapon systems, her fingers dancing across her console as she coordinated railgun fire, missile launches, and point defense systems all at the same time. "Targeting the lead battleship's engines," she announced. "Firing." A salvo of railgun rounds punched through the battleship's shields, tore into its propulsion systems, and the massive vessel lurched to the side as explosions rippled across its hull. Chief Engineer Tony Reeves worked frantically in the engine room as damage reports flooded in from every section of the ship. "We have lost forward shield projector 3, he reported, "and the primary coolant system is failing. but I can keep us running for at least another hour. Commander Kevin Brooks coordinated the defense systems and fed tactical data to every station on the bridge. Multiple enemy ships are breaking formation to surround us, he warned. I count at least 50 trying to get behind us. Cole nodded and made a split-second decision. Helm, bring us about and take us through the center of their formation, he ordered. We are going straight for the flagship. The Valiant changed course and accelerated directly toward the crushing Talon, weaving through the Dravari fleet like a shark swimming through a school of fish. Explosions blossomed on every side as enemy ships fell to the human weapons. But the Valiant took hits as well, and each impact shook the ship and tested the limits of its crew. Dr. Lisa Morgan worked at her science station with blood running down her forehead from a wound she had received when a console exploded nearby. Captain, I have identified a critical weakness in the flagship's shield configuration, she reported. There is a blind spot in their coverage near the ventral reactor housing. Cole smiled grimly. Lieutenant Vasquez, did you hear that? He asked. Maria grinned, despite the chaos around her. Already locked on, sir, she confirmed. Just get me within range. The Valiant pushed through the final line of Dravari defenders and emerged within striking distance of the crushing Talon, its hull scorched and battered, but still holding together. Fire, Cole commanded. A concentrated barrage of railgun, rounds, and nuclear missiles struck the flagship's unprotected reactor housing, and for a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the crushing Talon exploded in a brilliant flash of light that was visible from 3 star systems away. High Commander Vorthon died instantly, his last thought being a grudging admiration for the humans who had defeated him. Observer Yelmora barely managed to escape in a shuttle before the flagship was destroyed. Her recording devices clutched tightly against her body as she fled the battle. The destruction of the flagship sent shockwaves through the Dravari fleet, and without their commander to coordinate their efforts, the remaining ships began to break formation and scatter. Captain Cole opened a channel to all frequencies. "Attention Dravari vessels," he announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Your High Commander is dead, and your fleet is broken. So I am giving you one final chance to withdraw from this system." War Chief Drexel had assumed command of the remaining forces, and he faced a terrible choice. They could continue fighting and almost certainly be destroyed, or they could retreat and face the judgment of the Dravari Council. Looking at the carnage around him, at the wreckage of 412 ships that had been reduced to scrap by a single human vessel, Drexel made his decision. "All ships retreat," he ordered with bitter resignation. "Fall back to the hyperspace jump point." The surviving Dravari vessels turned and fled toward the edge of the system, leaving behind the largest military defeat in their empire's history. On the bridge of the Valiant, the crew watched the enemy retreat with a mixture of exhaustion and triumph. The ship had been heavily damaged, with multiple decks venting atmosphere and critical systems barely functioning. But it had accomplished its mission. 61 crew members had died in the battle, and another 40 were wounded, but Earth was safe. Captain Cole ordered a moment of silence to honor the fallen, and every member of the crew bowed their heads in respect. When the moment passed, Cole opened a channel to Earth Command. "Admiral Patterson, this is Captain Cole aboard the USS Valiant," he reported. "The Dravari fleet has been defeated, and Earth is secure." Patterson's voice came back with obvious pride. "Outstanding work, Captain," the Admiral replied. "You and your crew have made humanity proud." In the weeks that followed, the recording from Observer Yelmora spread across the galaxy, and every species watched in amazement as a single human ship defeated 800 Dravari warships. The Galactic Council formally requested that humanity promise to never expand its fleet beyond its current size, but the human ambassador politely declined to make any such commitment. Ambassador Kiravel cornered Patricia Wells. "After one of the council sessions, and asked the question that haunted every species in the known galaxy. "Why did Earth only send one ship?" Kiravel demanded. "You could have sent dozens, hundreds even, and ended the battle much more quickly." Patricia smiled and considered her answer carefully. "Because sending two would have been excessive," she replied simply. Kiravel stared at her for a long moment, before finally understanding the message humanity was sending to the galaxy. They were not to be underestimated. Captain Nathan Cole received the Medal of Valor for his actions, and when reporters asked him how he felt about single-handedly changing the balance of power in the galaxy, he simply shrugged. "I was just doing my job," he said quietly. "The real heroes are the crew members who did not come home." The USS Valiant was repaired and returned to active duty within 6 months, and Captain Cole remained in command until his next assignment. Retirement 15 years later. Observer Yelmora's documentary, titled "The Day the Galaxy Learned Fear," became the most viewed recording in galactic history, and it ended with a simple observation that would be quoted for centuries to come. Humanity did not conquer the stars because they were the most advanced or the most numerous, but they conquered the stars because they were the most dangerous. And the galaxy would do well to remember that the next time they considered humanity a minor species on the edge of civilized space. Because for humanity, survival was not an achievement. It was a way of life. And heaven help anyone who threatened their home.